Now you can kind of see a lot more of those white clouds that I mentioned on your screen.
Yes, launch closeouts.
That is because we are venting out the liquid oxygen line on that transporter erector. We are just clearing out the line in preparation for liftoff. Coming up next is Falcon 9 in startup. Again, that will be where the internal flight computers take over the launch countdown. That is because this Falcon 9 vehicle is autonomous.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And great news, Falcon 9 is now in startup. We are now just waiting for the launch director's final call.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
And excellent news, all systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the OneWeb Launch 16 mission payload.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go Falcon, go OneWeb 2.
Pitching downrange.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral, carrying the OneWeb Launch 16 mission payload. Now, during ascent, we tilt the engines, which is what we call gimbaling.
Power and telemetry.
That turns the rocket horizontally, which is what we call a gravity turn. Now, we're still going up, but we are now also heading horizontally away from the launch pad.
Vehicle supersonic.
Moments ago, we did throttle down the engines on the first stage in preparation for Max Q, which is coming up here in a few seconds.
Max Q.
Great news, we have just passed through the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent. Really awesome views here of the first stage vehicle. Now, the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and to get into orbit. So you can keep an eye out on the stage 1 telemetry, and that's on the bottom left hand of your screen. Again, incredible views of the first stage vehicle, first stage engines lighting up there. We do have 5 events coming up here back to back. That will be MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES-1, the boost back burn on the first stage, and then we will also have the fairing halves deploy. Again, that is a few events happening in quick succession: MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES-1, boost back burn, and fairing deploy.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition. Stage 1, boost back startup.
There, we have just seen all of those events, really cool views. We had MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, which you can kind of see in the background of the second stage vehicle's view. Awesome view here of the first stage in its boost back burn right now. We also had second stage engine startup 1, which is that MVAC engine lighting up on the right-hand screen. Now, next up will be the conclusion of the first stage boost back burn, and then shortly after followed by the fairing deploy.
Stage Stage 1, boost back, shut down.
And there you can see on your left-hand screen as those engines shut down on the first stage. That concludes the boost back burn for the first stage vehicle.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And also got an awesome view of fairing deployed there on your screen. Now those fairing halves,
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
those fairing halves, one flew for a 6 time and the other for a 7 time, and we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again today once they fall back down to Earth using our recovery vessel Doug today. Now we are T plus 4 minutes and about 15 seconds into today's mission, and we are in the first of 2 planned MVAC burns before satellite deployment. Now on your screen on the left-hand side is a view from the first stage. It is a little bit dark there, but when we do come up on the entry burn, which is at T plus 6 minutes and 20 seconds, you should see those 3 engines reignite on your screen. And that entry burn is where we reignite these 3 engines, and that helps slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. Now we need to slow the vehicle down to reduce re-entry forces, which helps us recover and reuse the first stage vehicle. Now during the entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines. We're also still moving rapidly, so this causes the vehicle to fly through its Merlin exhaust gases, which is also what we refer to as the rocket's plume. And this deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle surface. Now that soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses. And we are just about 30 seconds away from that entry burn beginning on the first stage. On your right-hand screen is a view from the second stage, looking at that MVAC engine glowing very bright there. Now, stage 1 is making its way back to land, and you can see Cape Canaveral there in the background of your left-hand screen just a little bit. It will perform 3 burns for landing. It already completed the boost back burn, now coming up on the entry burn, followed by the landing burn.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
Great news, as you heard that call out and can see on your screen, we have reignited 3 of the 9 M1D engines on the first stage. That's the center E9 engine, followed by the E1 and E5 engines.
Stage 1, entry burn, shut down.
Stage 1 FTS is safed.
It's less than a 20-second burn, and as you can see, the engines have shut down. That concludes the entry burn for the first stage
Both
vehicle.
vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Now we are just about 30 seconds away from the landing burn beginning on the first stage vehicle. It is just the E9 engine that will ignite for landing, and the M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust, so 1 engine reigniting is just enough to help slow the vehicle down in time to touch down for landing.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
Stage 1, landing burn.
There you can see the landing burn has begun on Falcon 9. Let's watch as the first stage touches down on landing zone 1.
Landing leg deployed.
Stage 1, landing confirmed.
Wow, an awesome view of our land landing. As you just saw, Falcon 9 has touched down on landing zone 1. That marks SpaceX's 162nd recovery of an orbital class rocket.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
And that includes first stage landings for both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Now coming up shortly here, we will have SECO 1, that is second stage engine cutoff 1. That is where we will shut down this MVAC engine and allow the vehicle to coast with the payload. before its second burn, and that's coming up here in just a few seconds.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And great news, we have had SECO 1 as well as that call out confirming a good orbit. Now the mission isn't over just yet. The second stage is now embarking on its first coast phase. After the coast phase, we will light that MVAC engine for a second time around T plus 55 minutes. We'll see you back here in about 45 minutes, and in the meantime, enjoy the space tunes.